It's time to laugh, learn, and take your photography to the next level with your favorite cowgirls with cameras, Kara, Kim, and Phyllis.
Welcome to the Cowgirls with Cameras podcast. I'm Kim with Kim Beer Photography and Be More Business.
I'm Kara with Fast Horse Photography.
And I'm Phyllis with Phyllis Burchett Photo. It is hot here in Georgia.
Yeah.
It is hot here in Missouri.
It is hot everywhere, I guess.
It feels
Yeah.
like you're walking through an oven and my poor horses are just standing around sweating.
Yeah.
Same.
I feel
Between
so
the-
bad
Same.
for them.
The boob sweat is boob sweating.
My
Yeah,
truck,
definitely.
my truck stated it was 102 degrees yesterday afternoon.
Oh, good grief.
Well,
Well, we're supposed to get a reprieve from that, from the heat, I think starting tomorrow or the next day, because we have building projects we're planning on Friday. So I'm hoping that this is the last hot day and we get a break for a week. But as Nick reminded me, we're not even in August yet. And August is
Yeah.
normally our hottest month. So yeah, crazy. But we just got back from a really cool place.
the
Yes, we
dry
did.
head, is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
The dry head.
we didn't know if you were talking about you and Nick or us, or did you and Nick go someplace really
it was
cool?
the three of us. And I don't know about you, but there were moments while we were there that I was like actually cold.
Yeah, it was a little chilly, and I'm used to dressing like there for warm weather. Like it's usually
Yeah.
t-shirt weather while we're there. And there were a couple, like a day and a half, where I was wondering if I had to wear like everything in the suitcase because I didn't plan for that. But man, it made for some cool images.
It did. It made for some high drama images. And I personally am so proud of myself. I got back here and like did a travel log and edited over 100 images already.
Oh my gosh, I looked at your blog post or whatever that was. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm just going to
Thank
copy
you.
yours and put it into my website.
No, link it. Link it to your website for Mars.
That the links be a happening. So yes, I'm very proud of that. I'm hoping that I can continue that streak into our other events. So I'm planning something similar for Cottonwood and then
Yay!
Trappers. So hopefully this creative spurt that I am in will stick. And
Well, you're doing good. And for people who want to read about Dryhead, highly recommend heading over to our website, cowgirlswithcameras.com. Go to the events page and then go down to where the Dryhead event is listed, and you'll see a link. And Kim does this really fun day by day with pictures supporting it. So go check it out. We'll probably post it to social soon as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I had a blast, and it was so much fun sharing the drive out there with the two of you. Even though I think that you both got annoyed with me making you work.
No, we did. It was all good.
I never get annoyed with you, Kim.
Never.
If you're watching the video, you'll have to comment under it how much you believe the voices that go along with the faces they just made.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, okay. So what have you guys been up to since we've been home? Because it's only been about a week.
Sweating.
Besides sweating, I mean, I had to get things caught up over at my barn. We had brush hogging done. And then I have been editing a senior session and trying to get things ready for the viewing party for our Dryhead Ranch event. And repairing a picture that fell off the wall. I've been doing
Oh
all
my,
sorts of
that
stuff. Yeah.
happened when we were at Dryhead, didn't it?
Yes,
Didn't you
but I
get the
picked it up.
message?
I got it all figured out, picked it up, and from my client and getting it repaired for them. They fell into it, so I just want to make sure it's clear that it wasn't a design flaw in my work.
I hope they were okay. It didn't hurt. The picture didn't hurt them.
They appeared to be okay when I saw them. So anyway, yeah, that's it. I feel like it's been 90 miles an hour since we got back. And we're still
Yeah.
on summer vacation here for my son. So he goes back to school on the 11th, which is less than 2 weeks away. So I've also been like, I had to order a backpack and I've got all the school supplies in the shopping cart ready to hit click, and all of that. So it's been wild.
Gosh, I cannot believe. Okay, so part of me is really, really ready for Phyllis's sweater weather. So Phyllis, go ahead and say it.
I'm so ready for sweater weather.
Okay, so we're all ready for sweater weather, but also I'm really shocked and amazed that we're less than 2 weeks out from somebody going back to school. Like
I
it
know.
doesn't feel
Mhm.
like the summer has really been that long. And if I were a kid in school, I would be really frustrated that I only had 2 weeks left of
Mm.
summer
He's
and
not
they were
thrilled.
probably miserably
Yeah.
hot.
He's not
Yeah.
thrilled, and then we leave, like, 2 days later for, our Cottonwood Ranch event, so, really, we did such a good job on timing that out so I could be here there for his first day of school before heading out to that event. Yeah.
That
Nice,
was close.
nice.
Yeah, we planned it, though, that
Yeah.
way last year, so
We did,
yeah.
and, I do expect to see first day of school pictures with a somewhat begrudgingly, participatory Easton as he is now in the preteen or teen. Is he a teen yet?
He's a preteen.
He's a preteen.
He's
In the
12.
preteen,
Yeah. He's
sort
a
of
tween. We
attitude
call him a
stage.
tween.
He sounds like
Yeah.
a 18-year-old.
He does?
Yeah, the voice changed this summer. Lots of things have changed this summer. Um, and yeah, I'll do my best to get a picture. We're not going to be used to getting up at 6 a.m. and getting out the door in 30 minutes. So we might be a little haggard first day. Sometimes I do like the third day of school picture once we've settled in.
Once you have the thing settled in.
Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. What about you, Phyllis? What have you been up to?
I pretty much well, but minus the kid, kind of very similar. Just kinda trying to get caught up, and I haven't been able to work on very many dry head pictures. I did a handful last week, and, I've been doing this judging thing for the International Pet Photographers Awards,
That's
and,
exciting.
I think I spend too much time doing that because I do. I spend too much time I know I spend too much time doing
Yeah,
it.
but the people who have submitted images for judging, I bet they're so happy that people take the time, you
Yeah, I mean,
know?
they've got a big slate of, a big slate of judges, so there's, like, 25 judges, so I guess that's why, because they know how much time we all take doing it, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they had 4,000 entries, so, yeah,
Wow.
been doing that, and, oh gosh, I don't know, I've been sitting in front of this computer a lot, it seems, because 'cause I'm not making my dog very happy, so, anyway, that's about it.
You're being judged by Kaylee.
Yeah.
He's like, "Wait a minute. It's
Mhm.
really." Well, surely she doesn't wanna be out in the heat either.
Oh, yeah, she'd much rather be outside. She's like every time I get up from here, she's like, "Are you ready to go? Is it time to go? What, are we going outside now? 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 Huh? 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 Huh?" Yep, that's her. Yep.
Our dog, we can't
Yeah.
force out of the air conditioning.
Oh, no, she'll be laying on a concrete pant, and I'm like, "How was that fun?" But she would rather be outside. I can't even get
Mm,
her to come inside. She's like, "Aren't you coming outside?" And
yeah.
but no.
No, no,
Nope,
not at
nope.
our house. We have long-haired dogs, though, so they don't, the big livestock guardian dogs, in the wintertime, we can't make them come in. Like, it can be
Oh, yeah.
-20 and they're happy
They're in
outside,
their
but
environment, yeah.
in the summer, as soon as it gets over about 65 degrees, they stand at the basement door going, hello, there's air conditioning, I know it."
We're not
So
dum-dums. We know where we belong.
nice, nice. Well, Kara, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about one of our sponsors.
Yes, I would. I just want to say a big thank you to Bay Photo, who has come on board this year as an event sponsor. And I was really happy when they decided to sponsor us. And I will tell you that I've worked with Bay Photo probably since maybe my second year as a photographer. I picked them up really early on. And I use them specifically for my mounted prints. I use them for my metal prints, my curved metals. That's most of what I order from them on a regular basis. And I want to say that not only have I worked with them for so long, but when I have had product and orders made, they are always super quick to help out. So that's the thing. And I think I've mentioned it before. When you're working as a professional, you have to work with professional level companies and you need them to respond to you quickly and efficiently. And they need to be able to get your product to you when they say they're going to get it to you. And if something happens, it gets lost in shipping or it gets damaged in shipping, that they are very quick to to understand that that's really important to us as photographers trying to fulfill the needs of our client, and they respond very quickly to that. So I've just had a really great experience working with them. So when I reached out to them as a longtime client, they're a big company, and I was like, oh, I don't know if they're going to be interested in sponsoring little old us right here at
Yeah.
Cowgirls with Cameras. But you know what? They have been amazing. They jumped right on board and said, absolutely, we would love to show some love to your network of Cowgirls with Cameras. So just want to give a shout out, bayphoto.com. If you're looking for kind of an all around print company, they do pretty much everything. And they're a great place to start, especially if you're new to printing, because they're so supportive throughout that process.
1000% support Bay Photo. I've used them for a long time too as well, Kara, and
Mhm.
I had to, I even use them for frame prints, especially if they're being sent to a gallery or something.
Yeah,
And for that women's work, I just used them and they were so great. I had chatted with them online and they said, no problem. When you place your order, call us and we will be sure it gets pushed through so that it gets there in time for the show.
that's
And so,
amazing.
yeah, they were just I love them. I really do. Their support, the products, everything is great.
That's amazing. So it sounds like for the Women's Work show, if you want to mention that your work is presented, it's been printed by Bay Photo
Yeah,
and
mhm,
hanging by Bay Photo
yeah.
at that gallery
Yes, it is.
event. That's amazing.
If I ever get to see it, but
All right. Anyway, thank you, Bay Photo.
Yay, Bay
yes, thank you.
Photo. Awesome.
Mm.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so is everybody ready to dive into the
Let's do it.
topic of the day? So our theme for the month of August is going to be centered around working with models. So we're going to be talking today about some guidelines around the ways that you might want to consider using models in your business. And then next time you hear from us, we're going to talk about some best practices of working with models. So today we've kind of split this topic up into three pieces. I'm going to talk about working with models to build your portfolio and for self-spec work. Kara is going to be speaking about working with models in utilizing them to create stock imagery. And then Phyllis is going to be um talking about working with models to develop branding images for both you and your clients. And so Phyllis and I are probably going to cross over just a hair bit, but it shouldn't be a problem. And everybody needs sometimes a good repeat, especially on these things. So I'm going to kick off with why you might want to utilize models in your own business to promote yourself, to build your portfolio, and for self spec work. And I also am going to add one other thing in here to learn something new. So, first of all, when Phyllis talks about branding, I want you guys to really perk your ears up because when you're designing a portfolio or you're doing self spec work, it's really important to consider your brand. Like, how do you want to show up? Because what you're putting out into the world is what people are going to expect. So, if it's not something that you want to continue to do, let's say you don't want to be a portrait photographer and yet your portfolio is full of portraits, that's what people are gonna expect from you. So make sure that when you're designing these shoots for yourself and you're working with models, that you are designing and hiring models and setting up scenarios and locations that are gonna represent what you want to be shooting. So what your clients are gonna expect. And that comes into the next step of working with things to build your portfolio, working with models to build your portfolio and your self spec work. Who is your target market? Because the reality is, and this is very appropriate because I just got off of a phone call. As a matter of fact, I was a couple of minutes late to podcast recording this morning because I was helping a client with their website and helping them understand that your website is not about you. Your website is all about your customers. And in order to create it for your customers, you need to know your target market. Now, a good chunk of the images that get put on your website might represent the work that you're doing with clients. So if you're a portrait photographer, it may represent things from shoots that you've created for clients. and gotten releases for and now are putting up on your website. But there's also this really important aspect to it where you're going out and you're seeking exactly the people that represent the folks that you want to work with. So let me give you an example of how that worked in my own business and my own life. When I very first started working as a photographer, doing some portrait work, this was before I really kind of honed in and decided I wanted to be a commercial photographer. I did a lot of 4-H'ers, okay? 4-H kids are amazing to work with. They don't pay the best. So they're not like it's not the level that I really wanted to work with. Yet because I worked with them, my client portfolio really represented them. So they were well represented in the images that I had. But what happens is when people look at that on your website, I'm so old that this was an actual portfolio, not on a website. Um, I keep remembering back. Yes, shake your head, Kara. Shake that head. So there wasn't a web gallery. This was a literal portfolio that I carried around. Um, it had a lot of pictures of those individuals, and I wanted to, not that I didn't love working with them, but I wanted to up level. I wanted to work with particularly performance horses, and I wanted to really build in my stallion portfolio. So one of the things I did was I found some barns near me, not a lot, that had situations that represented what I wanted to shoot. And I made agreements with them so that they would allow me to photograph their horses and I would give them part of the images. So in this case, I did kind of a work for hire sort of model situation. And I chose them specifically because those are the equine models that I wanted to be paying me. So now those images were showing up in my portfolio. And that's what people saw when I went to sit down with another barn that had a stallion that I
Mm.
wanted to photograph or that I wanted to work with and be paid for. That's what they saw in my portfolio. And it makes a difference in how you get hired. So, when you're thinking about working with models for building your portfolio, think about what you want to bring in more of in your business. Now, if you're one of those folks that are like, oh my gosh, I don't really know what I want to do, hiring models and working with them is a really good way for you to figure that out. And if you are curious and want to dip your toe in to see, maybe I really would like portrait work. First of all, buy Kara and Betsy's book on posing models with horses. That's number one on your list. But as soon as you get that, get yourself a few models and their horses and go through the whole process with them. You know, at the end of the day, you're going to come out with portfolio images that you can use to attract more of the like. And you are also going to come out the end knowing if that is for you. For me personally, I enjoy working with people, but wow, I would far rather work with the performance horse. And I really am there to photograph the horse a little bit more than I am the people. And when I became a commercial photographer, I really enjoyed working with the businesses, and most of the businesses I worked with, guess what their clientele are? Performance horse people, right? So I got to do what I loved and do it for businesses. And again, I built my portfolio and hired models and worked with some actual brands kind of on a trade basis for a little while to be able to build that portfolio up so that I could do that. And then the last, next thing, last thing I want to talk about kind of for building your portfolio is self spec work. So there are times that I want to do creative projects that aren't necessarily portfolio building projects and to be honest with you, there are images that I think I might want to sell, which is if you're doing stock imagery, that's what Kara is going to talk about, but in my case it might be something that I wanted to put together in a book. And I have created a lot of situations, not just in the equine world and the Western lifestyle, but in other places where I wanted to do creative projects where I could utilize the images that I took. And again, I'm going to need to hire models, both equine and human, to be able to accomplish that. Then the very last thing I want to mention, which just kind of came to me as I started talking about this, is if you want to try something new, let's say you've never shot a black background portrait in your life, and you've maybe taken a class online, or you've seen us talk about it, or maybe you even been to a Cowgirls with Cameras workshop where you've gotten to see us do it. Now you need to set it up on your own. This is another really appropriate time to hire a model so that you can play around with it and get very comfortable with what you're doing before you're doing it in a paid situation. And you can create your professionalism around being able to create those images. And again, you'll walk away with some portfolio images and a better education about what you want to do. How does that sound for
I
all of that? Anybody have any questions or comments?
I just wanna add because you talked about, like, learning how to shoot different types of photography or styles and, adding things to your portfolio. Like, when I first started my business, I used models in addition to that as part of learning my process and working out the kinks in my process. So, I asked all of the models that I worked with as part of being a model to go through my workflow process so I could work out the rub areas and, like, really kinda refine that, and that helped me a lot, and it helped build confidence in my ability to, like, talk about product and to kind of, like, talk about my process in general. So, don't be afraid to, like, think outside the box
Mhm.
with your models and use them to help you be better at the work in general and not just at, you know,
Yeah.
creating images.
Treat them like a real client
Yeah.
and like you said, go through your whole process. Yep.
Yeah.
And set them up to give you feedback at the end of it.
Yep.
Like, to say where parts of it felt awkward or different, or and the same with when you're working with them, ask them to, or and take feedback from them, if you're learning something new or if you're doing portfolio type images. When I very first started photographing studs in particular and doing stallion ads, I took some pretty harsh criticism from some stallion owners on my photography before I completely understood it. And again, that's part of the reason that I sort of shifted over to first performance horses because it's a different world. At first, I did halter horses, which are a lot more demanding on posing in particular,
Mm.
and then moved up into commercial photography, which is where I stayed
I
because that's
found
what
the
I enjoyed.
I found the opposite was true. I did better with halter horses than I did with performance horses, because especially when they're wanting still images of a horse jogging or something, it's I mean, you got it's really it can be really tricky.
And that goes to show you
Mhm,
that everybody has a different preference, right?
mhm.
It's kind of how you perceive it and how you approach it. So, yeah. I mean, it's this is part of that process. And working with models means that the pressure for someone else's expectations is off of you, and it's your own expectations that you're up against in your own learning process, which I don't know, for some people, I think is worse than the client expectations. I know for me, I'm my harshest critic, but it also helps me set up for better experiences as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to talk about working with models for stock imagery. And I'm going to start by kind of making the case for doing that because there are a lot of ways that you can get stock imagery. And I talk about, we've spoken about that before, but there are some really good reasons to use models. And I think it's important to start by saying when we're talking about models, we are most of the time not talking about people who are professionally trained to be models. We're talking about your average equestrian, like someone who is actively owning or riding or leasing horses that you're asking to model for you. So, here are the reasons why I think you should consider using models for your stock imagery work. First of all, if you're creating stock imagery, you're going to want to have some content diversity. So you can use, and work with and actually go out and identify equestrians that are, different. They look different. They have different features. They have different skin colors, different hair types. They have different riding disciplines. They might be older or younger. They work with different breeds of horses. They ride, different disciplines and different types of riding clothes. This is going to make your stock image library a lot more user friendly and just kind of marketable out there in the world. Also, working with models gives you control over your image creation. Unlike when you have a client session, when I first started pulling stock imagery, I would try at every client session to get images that I could use potentially as stock as well. So if my client is saddling up, I might grab a couple shots of their hands saddling up the horse that I knew I could throw into stock imagery. But that's really it's really tricky because you're not getting much. It's a lot of work. You know, you're just trying to piggyback onto a session. But a when you hire models to help you create your images, you have control over what's happening and you can dictate the style that you want to create. You can dictate the outfits. You can really choose who you want to work with. Also, using models is a really great way to fill in the gap. So you might be out there shooting stock regularly, but you need some really specific things, and you need someone that's going to be willing to do those things for you with their horse. So you can plan shoots to create images you don't normally get paid to shoot with your clients, such as tack cleaning. You might shoot groundwork, veterinary care, barn chores, just different lifestyle shots around the barn. And I laugh because one of my best selling images, best licensing images is of sheath cleaning. And it's like things you wouldn't think to photograph, but if you can get that out there, there are people that are talking about that are writing articles about it, that are, trying to educate, that need images to go with their content. So then, the other reason is because it gives you an opportunity to create evergreen content or seasonal content. So you can go out and intentionally set up um, shoots that will meet seasonal needs for your clients. So, for example, if it's getting cold out, you might start shooting winter blankets so that horses in winter blankets, so those are ready to go when the season rolls around. Right now, I'm paying attention to what's licensing for my image library, and it's horses getting bathed. It's spraying water over horses' backs. It's hot. People are writing articles about how hot it is and they need images to go with it. So a hand spraying a hose over a horse's back, that images has been licensing this week. Um, you might also be looking at holiday themed, barn around the barn images, garlands on horses, that kind of thing is going to be coming up in the next few months that people are going to need those images. So thinking about how do you make your image library something that's relevant year round, and you can do that by getting models to help fill in those gaps that you're not able to just get all the time anywhere. Okay, so when you're shooting for stock, here are a few things I think you should keep in mind when working with models. First of all, I want you to think multi-purpose. So you're going to shoot both horizontally, you're going to shoot vertical, and you're going to make sure you leave a lot of space for copy. Kim has really put that into my brain, and I think about that a lot now when I'm shooting, and when I go back and look at what is licensing, it's usually an image that has good negative space so that the designers then have some flexibility when they're putting together a layout. So, you have put that in my brain, Kim, and I use it
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, and one tip that I have to offer, because I buy a lot of stock
Mhm.
photography. I not only shoot a lot of stock photography for my clients, not for just general stock, but I buy a lot of general stock photography. I look for an image that has 2/3 negative space.
Oh, good to know.
So that gives me latitude that I can use that image vertically or horizontally, um, in either direction, and it gives me more latitude. And sometimes I will tell you, as a designer, the reason we look for that is that that ad may have to be made into different sizes. It may have to go across the top of a website. It may
Mhm.
go on a full page ad in a vertical magazine, or it may go on a half page ad, or a flyer that they hand out, or a business card. So I really need it in multiple dimensions, and I also need that negative space so I have room to crop, and I also have room to add either other images or type.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I'm going to continue to keep that in mind when I'm shooting for stock. Okay, so my next tip for that would also be capture everyday equestrian life. Like stock isn't just about those posed pretty portraits, it's about more authentic moments that is kind of like representative of the everyday horse person, right? So cleaning stalls, putting on fly spray, doing vet checks or taking care of wounds, going to horse shows. hanging out with your barn friends, grooming, trailering, wound care, training, all of it again. So I put that on there because that is something that I think a lot of photographers don't think about shooting. And another great example is I have a stock image that does really well. That's just of a girl sitting in a barn aisle doing her homework. And I just caught her doing her homework at the barn. And that image, it does really well for me because that's real equestrian life, right? Think about all those kids that get home from school and they run to the barn, but they still have to get their homework done. So try to think outside the box a little bit with that when you're shooting, just everyday equestrian life. Some of that stuff that we take for granted as horse owners is worthy of being photographed for stock imagery. I would also say think about the details. So don't forget close ups such as braided manes, tack, buckling of tack, dusty boots, horse ears. They are used a lot in stock imagery. I have an image of horse ears that are against a black background and it's just the ears. And that image gets used all the time. I'm picturing it as it is probably on 20 different websites at this point as like a website header because it's really long and it gives a lot of room for people to write information on the side. So, and then I think the last thing is keep it authentic on that. So stock buyers want images that feel real and not staged. So, I try to keep things as natural as possible when I'm giving directions to models. So I might say something like, go ahead and halter your horse. And then I'll take a look at what that looks like while they're haltering. And then I'll give some directions from there to maybe get a better shot or better light in that moment. And just something that I would give, direction based on how they normally would halter their horse. So I try not to like be overly directive on like this is how you should halter the horse. Like I want to see how real, the regular person does it in their life and then make adjustments from that. It helps people not quite be so stiff when they're modeling for you. Okay. So the third area I want to talk about is about building long-term relationships with models. Like honestly, this has saved my butt so many times over the years. Having models that I can rely on that are willing to model for me at the drop of a hat. So try to find ways to give some value back to these folks. You can offer a few images, and I think Phyllis will talk a little bit about this too down below, but think about taking a couple thank you portraits. Like, I'm happy to grab a couple portraits of you with your horse, when we're done here so that they have something of them and their horse. Or this is going to sound crazy, but pay them because they're doing work for you. So don't hesitate to pay them for their time and effort. And a lot of times, most horse owners or equestrians will be really thrilled to have professional images of themselves out in the world. So just make sure that you're finding a way to compensate them. I like to have a kind of a go-to list of reliable horsewomen, horsemen, and horses that can make it really easy for me at the drop of a hat to give them a holler and say, I need this. When are you available? And we get it done. So the last thing I want to give a couple tips because I always like to have actionable tips. And the first thing is keep a shot list so you don't have any gaps. So you know what you're getting, you keep it organized, you get in and out and get what you need, and it doesn't take longer than necessary. So you've also got your people there in front of you. So if you get there and you're just winging it and then you go back home, it's a big hassle for them to have to get back out and get ready to go again. So make sure you're being really organized about that. I also recommend giving clothing direction. So, suggesting that they wear something kind of neutral. Solid colors are really good, classic equestrian styles, just so the image can feel a little more timeless. I steer clear of like really brightly colored tack and anything that's like really trendy with that'll probably go out of style in the next year or two. I try to stick with stuff that's more traditional. And then the last thing I'm going to say, well, 2 more things. The next thing is create as much variety as you can from your sessions. So think about, I've got this amazing horse person in front of me with their horse. How can I get the most out of this as possible? So be as organized as you can about doing outfit changes, tack swaps, and shooting in different locations around the barn so that you really change up the scene. And then, I guess the last thing I wanna say is, I don't know if everyone that's listening is a horse owner, has been a horse owner, has spent time in a barn, has ridden, but kinda think like a horse person. Like, spend some time thinking like a horse owner. What is the day-to-day things that those of us who spend our days with horses maybe take for granted? because a lot of these things go unphotographed, but they're really needed in the stock image world. So some of my top licensed images have literally been something as simple as saddling, mounting. I get mounting images licensed all the time, equine dentistry, um, and then like I mentioned before, something as simple as horses being sprayed with water in the heat. So really kind of think like someone who's dealing with horses on a daily basis. You guys have anything you want to add to that?
I
No.
do.
Mm.
Phyllis, do you wanna go first?
No, I don't have anything to add, so
Well, I just have a couple of things as a stock image buyer that I would like to add, just because I have that weird and unique experience that I do use stock images in design work. And one thing I would like for you to educate your models on, if you utilize models for shooting for stock imagery, is educate them to minimize the logos on their clothing or their tack. Like, I know everybody loves to ride for the brand, but when I buy stock imagery, a lot of times I'm going to Photoshop the logo off. So that's extra work for me. And if I see an image that doesn't have a logo on it, and I'm talking super obvious logos, like everybody expects a cowboy to wear Wrangler jeans, right? So I don't expect you to Photoshop the jeans from not being Wrangler. But what I don't want is I don't want Wrangler's logo huge in my image, even though I love Wrangler. If I'm utilizing that image for a different client, I don't want that to be the thing that their clients see. So just be conscientious about that. There's a lot of times that we have models that have at some of our workshops show up with the cinch logo that's up and down the arm of the jacket, and that's great for cinch, but it detracts when I'm using that image to advertise or utilize in a commercial setting for a different company, even if that company is not a clothing company. So do educate your models in choosing their clothing. And I know Kara probably works with her people well in advance and gives them a whole wardrobe check, but not all of
I'm
us
actually
are
going to
that
talk about that
organized.
on the next episode.
Yep.
Yep.
So I know not all of us are that organized, myself included. So I just kind of have a blanket expectations of that. And also choreograph. So many of the things that I need in stock imagery are things that take place in a day-to-day life of an equestrian. However, I need you to look around and the models to also participate in being choreographed into doing it in a way that I can utilize. So the images that I'll reject as a stock buyer are typically images that probably the photographer didn't think a lot or give a lot of direction to the model. I'm not saying over manage your model, but I am saying that you do need to communicate to the model effectively. And you, as the photographer, need to look around in the situation because there's, again, times I'll look at an image and go, I can't buy that because of one thing or another that's in the image. So,
Are you saying
um,
like clean up the scene, clean up the
clean it
background,
well, if that is
or
appropriate, clean it
reposition
up.
as appropriate?
Reposition as appropriate. If it's
Gotcha.
like if the image is, like, super filled with stuff, this is a place where a lot of the images I buy are gonna be shot with a more wide open aperture where you're really focused in on what is going on in the image that's telling the story that I'm gonna utilize, because if there's a lot of distractions, it gets lost. And distractions can be things like lots of stuff, so cleaning up the area, and distractions can also be, things like somebody's hand with a weird color fingernail polish, which is something you probably need to discuss with your model before you get started, right? So Kara mentioned some of those things with neutral colored clothing. Um, but it gets into the details. It really does get into the details because when you focus in on something, then that becomes important. The hand holding the hose, spraying the water over the horse's back needs to represent accordingly. And there are times that I'll look at an image and go, I can't use that image because of whatever that happens to be. So just spend some time maybe looking at images that get used in various advertising websites for equestrians. Go just spend a little bit of time looking over magazines. Editorial people buy these types of images as well. So just look at that and then look at how to direct your models to be able to do that effectively. I hope that was helpful and not too much
That's
information.
great advice. Okay, is it my turn?
It is your turn.
I'm going to talk about working with models to develop branding images for your personal use and your clients. Um, I, First and foremost, the I think the most important thing you need to think about is to define the brand vision. What is the why behind the campaign that you're going to be shooting for? Um, you also want to, like as Kara mentioned, have a mood board and a shot list, a compilation of reference images like for styling, poses, just different things that you can look back at to remind you that this is what you want to shoot. You also, if you're looking for models, and you don't have models in mind, you have to prepare a model brief. So who you're looking for, the age range, the gender, the body type, even the ethnicity,
You can say
um,
it. You can say it.
You can do
ethnicity.
it.
Your
The
tongue
Georgia
can twist.
accent can do it.
I think I did it. I'm not
You
doing it
did it.
again. Even their vibe and their personality is important in the campaign that you'll be shooting, and how they reflect, and what kind of personality they reflect. Also, what's in it for them? Are you going to pay them, or are you going to give them time for prints? Um, or are they going to give you time for prints? I'm sorry. The portfolio usage, the social media tags, just all of this you have to keep in mind of what's in it for that model, because they're going to want to know. Also, when and where, the date, the time, the location, what to prepare, wardrobe, as you just discussed, notes, hair and makeup guidelines, and props, if any. I know there are casting and outreach through other platforms and networks like I think there's Model Mayhem and some local. We have some local casting groups around here too, but I have personally never used them. I know some people that have, and they've worked well for them, and they'll find models that they work well with and continue to use those same models through those services. The people I utilize are people that I'm already shooting or have shot before. That might be during one of my tours or a workshop or retreats that we host, or it could be a previous client that I have several previous clients that are always game to help me do something. They love to have pee in front of the camera.
The
So
benefit is that you worked
yes,
with them before,
yes,
so you know how they model already. You know what they're
exactly, yeah,
capable of, and they know you.
and most of the time I know they're easy to work with, and that's why I'm calling them again, because they're easy to work with.
Yeah.
They're up for anything, and I enjoy working with them most importantly. Um, I was going to talk. I'll talk about this next week in our next episode about the agreements and releases, but that's something that needs to be talked about too, for sure, in an upcoming episode. I'm going to jump right on to the pre-shoot preparation. I, like Kara said, having a call sheet and uh, a detailed, like, I would have all the contact info for the photographer, the models, the stylist, the makeup and hair artist. All your assistants have a contact info list for them. This would include the detailed schedule, the call time, more details about hair and makeup, exactly time, the brief about what you're going to be shooting, the block of window that you're going to be shooting in, what time you're going to be done, if there's permits or parking passes if needed. You want to confirm fittings, check out their wardrobe, like, yeah, to make sure there's not a lot of what Kim was talking about with logos and stuff. Are they going to use the client's wardrobe if you're shooting for a client or for a brand, or are they going to use their own clothes? In that case, you just really want to make sure that everything is cohesive for the shoot. Once you're on set, you wanna, during with the direction and feedback, you wanna communication is really key. Even before, during the shoot especially, is really communicate with your models. You wanna communicate the poses in a simple visual language. Sometimes you may have to, ask them if it's okay to walk up and touch them or maybe move something, or, but, don't just walk up and move somebody's clothes, or, say, "Is it okay if I," and most 9 times out of 10, they're gonna say, "Yes, it's fine," but always ask that question and be visual about what you're doing and show them, and you may even have to be the one to show them how to pose. Um, yeah, I think the biggest thing that is really helpful too is to have reference images on your phone that you can show them. That's really helpful. And always encourage, do a lot of positive reinforcement. And this will build confidence in your models, especially if somebody that you haven't worked with a lot. And it always yields better expressions. And I think it really makes for a pleasant experience for everybody, you and them. I would always assign someone to capture behind the scene video or images for you, well, for both your social needs and the client's marketing material as well. And the models will love that too. They'll want to have that. People love to see behind the scenes, like what went about to get this final product out. Um, of course, then you have your post production that you're going to work on the images and the delivery. And the big thing is really follow through with this promise edits that to your models that you be prompt about getting them the work. And of course, most of the time when the client's getting their work, the models for me, when the client gets their work, the models are getting work if I have promised them anything. Um, and last but not least is promotion and cross promotion, which I think is hugely important because you wanna be able to share everything on your channels, your portfolios, maybe a blog post with the behind the scenes, sharing on all your social media, do carousels, tagging, always tagging and mentioning, not just tagging, but mentioning your models and your clients too. And you want to of course, cross promotion with your clients' channels, branding announcements, who it's shot by. Be sure that they may not want you to put logos on your images. Most of the time, they don't. But most of the time, good most brands will give photo credit or to the photographer that's doing the shoot, somewhere in the caption or something. They may be doing an email newsletter featuring all the visuals and the behind the scenes story. And of course, you want to share this also. You want to be sure that you've got your models tagged in all this too with cross promotion. Um, and even if you can provide them with some kind of like a model pack with approved images that they are able to share, where they can tag you and your client, be sure that they have all that info to share everyone's social or even just their websites or whatever. I think what's really good too is to encourage them to maybe write a few lines about their experience, because this really helps boost your social proof when you have people that talk about working with you and working with that brand. All this is really good advice to carry through on.
I would say that some of the brands that I've worked with, and it may be something to do with, like, larger brands too, like, they, I want to have conversations with that brand in advance about, like, what they're looking for in terms of models, how many, the vibe, like what that needs to look like. And then also that then is going to dictate how I talk to my models about what they can do with their images, what they can't do with the images. Are they even getting images? Because I don't know about you guys, but I've worked with brands that are like, we want the exclusive use of these images. We don't want to
Uh-huh.
see them out in the world and other places. So that I think is such a big piece of what you've
Well,
spoken about, Phyllis, is like being super clear around expectation and what the brands expect, and because at the end of the day, like, we want our models to work with us, but we're in this area, we're really working with that brand and trying to find the models that can be professional as non-professional models to work with those brands.
Well, and yeah, and like I said, I didn't cover the exact details about agreements or
Yeah,
contracts and releases and everything, but all that would obviously be covered in writing. And I don't care whether I'm paying somebody or not, they're getting a contract or
yeah.
an agreement
yeah,
to know, because there's been too many times I've been burned by models that I have not burned by the model per se. I don't mean it like that, but just they've used the images where they weren't really allowed to do that, which
yeah,
and some of it wasn't really their fault. Is some of it wasn't clear. So I learned by that.
yeah.
But just trying to be be totally transparent with everything that they need to know. But yeah,
Absolutely.
all that is I think I cover that when I say define the brand vision, the why about the campaign. To me, that's covered with whoever I'm doing the branding or
Yeah.
whatever that is, whatever the campaign is, whether it be a client or for myself or whatever, that should be covered or talked about with them at that
Yeah.
time. Yes.
such a good point, because I've definitely worked with models that didn't understand the level of professionalism that was
Mhm.
needed for the level of brand that I was working with. So it's like trying to balance that,
Yeah.
is such an important piece of it. So very good point.
And
Awesome.
I think it's really cool too because, with the introduction of AI, you can go on ChatGPT and get a great, agreement written up right there on Chat. You just put in what you want, and it'll come back with a great one
Good
for you.
starting place.
Yeah, for starters.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything else anybody wants to add? Or are we going to wrap this up for part 2
I'm
coming
good.
soon?
I think we've given the people a lot of stuff to think about, and one of the things when I was thinking about this episode, I had pictured just human models more or less, but we need equine models, canine models, all of the above,
Mhm.
and a lot of the models I've hired over the years have been horses. So, and then the horse owner has to come along for a little bit of the fun, but yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely do not I guess my biggest piece of advice at the end of this episode is don't be afraid to work with models. Like, don't be afraid to stick your foot out into this, arena, and it will really up level your career and your work, whether you're doing it for yourself, for a brand, on spec, for stock. There's a lot of different options for using models, and, hopefully this has been some good advice for folks.
Awesome. Well, if you want more, you can find us online at cowgirlswithcameras.com. Don't forget, we have our private Cowgirls with Cameras community that is hopping. It's cowgirlswithcameras.community. So you can find it there, or just head to our website where we've got a link from the website. We'd love to see you over there. And we are on social media on Instagram and Facebook at Cowgirls with Cameras. So come say hi.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Cowgirls with Cameras. Don't let the laughter and learning stop here. Join our community on social media and be sure to visit our website for more opportunities to fulfill your photography goals. Head to cowgirlswithcameras.com. That's cowgirlswithcameras.com. See you next time.